So the idea for closing night actually came from a screenwriting class that I was in school. The premise of the assignment was to do just a two-person scene, two people having a conversation. It could be anywhere, it could be anything. And I just kind of started writing. I didn't really have any idea what I was going to do. And I got caught up in kind of the setting of the movie. And I don't know why, but I thought, a drive-in might be fun. It just felt right. And the setting for the movie actually kind of inspired the narrative.
Matt first came to me with this idea almost 2 years ago. And we talked about it more as like hey, this would be a fun idea for a script. The hardest part we knew right from the get-go was going to be, how are we going to get this drive-in? Like, what drive-in theaters are going to be willing to work with us? And how are we going to be able to operate in such a big space with such a small crew?
Finding a location, finding a place we could fake some sort of drive-in at. I know that was definitely tough on everybody. Like, where are we going to do this? We definitely made do and more, I think, for what we had.
We were just like pulling up any reference to a drive-through in like existing movies because we had to figure out how to fake one because you just couldn't get one in the middle of a pandemic. So like it just started with like Grease and like other movies and things where we were just trying to figure out like what a drive-through would look like in the dark, and just building off that color palette initially, and just really trying to create something that felt like a drive-through even though it was just a parking lot. So like really just implying drive-through without even seeing the screen was like the biggest part of like everything was just built around that.
We set the film in a place where you can't move, and so we kind of wanted to make up for that in terms of visually.
Every single decision, how's the camera going to move? Why is it going to move? Can we do that quickly? And then just what can we do? What can't we do? And then just being prepared for the day,
In terms of the colors and in terms of the depth of the movie, and making the movie look really, really pretty. And that took a lot of color grading, but it was also, we had intense lighting setups. We would meet up and kind of go through the computer and kind of plan out what lights would look good where, and kind of troubleshoot that and test that. And we did that for just about every setup for the movie.
Prep. Everything was like planned like in advance. And the nice thing is like there were like no surprises in post. Like what we had planned had already been decided like well before. So it was just a lot of like what's this gonna look like and how do we make that sure that happens ahead of time.
So in terms of casting, I wrote the movie with nobody in mind. I didn't know who was going to play Lydia. I didn't know who was going to play Noah. There was a very distinctive voice that Lydia had that I didn't really know who it was going to be. And I thought about people that we knew, and I thought about auditioning people. And finally, in my theater class, also at my college, I met Laura, and she had that voice. And I remember seeing her in her performance and seeing her in just a random scene, and I don't remember what the line was, but she delivered it in such a way that my ears, I was already paying attention because she's ferociously talented, but my ears perked up and I realized that was Lydia, and I texted Dave Vera and I told her that we found her.
Playing Lydia was extremely rewarding, not only because it was my first project and something that was super exciting for me, and I finally kind of got to check that off my bucket list and like the first thing that I did, but also being my first project, I got to play a character that was extremely similar to myself in the way that she conducts herself and the way that she entered this breakup and tried to handle herself within. Lydia and I are one and the same, which is why I think it's really cool. And in the future, I know there's going to be challenges relating to characters, but this first time around, I got to really be myself on set and really be myself with the character, which is why I feel like relating to her was so easy, in the sense of how she handled the breakup, what she said, and her composure during it, and even the points where she breaks, because if a boy spoke to me that way, I would break all the same. So I have a lot of respect for Lydia and the way that she conducted herself, and in certain situations, I wish I would have been able to handle myself like that in breakups. So she's definitely maybe the better version of myself, but I feel very close to her and very similar.
I think she did an amazing job. She was really wonderful in the rehearsal process, and I could not have made this movie without her, because Lydia is the most important part of this movie. In terms of Noah, I had thought about potentially playing Noah, but I wasn't sure, because I really thought that I wanted to direct the movie, and I went back and forth on what I wanted to do, if I wanted to do anything at all, if I was just going to be the writer and hand the script off to somebody else. But when meeting with Cocktail Party Pictures, they kind of were like, oh, you're going to play Noah, right? And I was like, oh, I can. And after talking with them for a little bit, we kind of decided that I was going to direct and act as Noah, which was, difficult, but I was, I had a blast.
The rehearsal process was really rewarding, and to even see the final product compared to the rehearsals was incredible. This was the first true rehearsal that I've ever had in a process to go through, and sitting in a room with a ton of like-minded people that are all extremely creative and passionate, to hear different standpoints and different ideas for line delivery. It's a really rewarding process to see everything come together and to see how that character was formed, not only with the decisions that you're making from the character, but everyone kind of weighing in. And I don't think without the rehearsal process, it would have turned out the way it did, and I absolutely adore the character. Something I think that people will definitely, I hope, take away from this film is sometimes asking questions doesn't always give you the answer that you want, but the answer that you need. And in that case, for closing night, Lydia is hoping that Noah fights for her and fights for this relationship, because even though she knows that it's essentially doomed and they are not destined to be together, she kind of still has hope there, and she definitely feels for him, and I think feels for that relationship and loving someone for the first time or being with someone for the first time. So I think a big takeaway is, in hard situations like that, you might not always get the answer that you want, but something that you need, and you find yourself in the making.
In designing a costume for a piece like this, where it's really a single scene, you have to choose pieces and choose outfits that directly reflect their personalities, because you're only going to see them in one outfit, so you want to make sure that they're accurate representations of who they are. So with Noah, like I said, he's a bit of a schleb, and so putting him in this big, baggy, voluminous hoodie that kind of swallows him up, and he's kind of comfy in and stuff, it almost shows like there's not a lot of effort put into it, which, contrasts with Lydia, who is very put together. Her outfit is slightly retro, definitely inspired by the retro aspects of the drive-in. She's definitely dressed up for this date. Despite what's about to go down, she's still putting her best foot forward. And I think, once again, that's where we see the contrast of the characters. So it was more so about reflecting who they were in that moment with a single outfit. As for the production design aspect, it's sort of the same thing in that, when you're planning a space, it's about reflecting that character in the space. We learn about the character through the environment they exist in. And since this is Noah's van, it's a reflection of him. And so it was more so nailing down and communicating that sort of, laissez-faire, laid-back, almost slobbish lifestyle, bringing that over into the van, and also, the process around it too. Not just within the van, but also the contrast of it with outside of the van. I think absolutely my favorite little thing we snuck in is on the dashboard. There is a copy of Romeo and Juliet, and all it is it's just the copy with a post-it note that says "read." And that's my favorite thing because it's so small, it's not super in frame, it's kind of hidden by some other stuff, but like the knowing that one of the most beautiful love stories in history is right in front of a couple about to break up, and the fact that he has not read it, I think is just like adds to the irony of the situation.
I didn't write this movie, based on any kind of experience that I had in my life, but after looking back on it and looking back at the script and shooting on the day, I think it rings true to high school, to a lot of experience in high school. I think everybody can relate to being in a situation where they are completely unsure as to what is going on and they are just trying to figure out how to deal.
But I've so been in a situation where I thought I had planned the script of what I was going to say and what they were going to say back and how I was going to counter it. And then I show with my lines memorized, and then the other person is arguing with me and they're off my script and they're killing me.
Yes, definitely. I think I can relate to being in an uncomfortable situation, a breakup, where you don't really know when is the right time to leave. I've never had a breakup happen actually in a drive-in, but in a car, yes.
I think everybody's dealt with a Noah, whether as a significant other or as just someone at a coffee shop who you hope that you can just get your coffee and go.
If there's something you can confidently say about Matt specifically and the crew as a whole, is that there's such a genuine appreciation and commitment to the classics of cinema.
I think the best part about working with this team is everyone pitching in and sharing their ideas on how to navigate through any small problems or big problems that we have, while shooting this thing.
When we had finished editing it and it looked like how we said we wanted it to do. So just jump back to having the homework done, it was just nice that the thought that was in your head actually showed up on screen.
Being able to talk about film and, relish a film together is a really unifying experience.
For me, reading and watching movies growing up was super, super important, and it's kind of how I found my identity. Movies are a safe place for me, and movies have always been my comfort, and so doing that for someone else is absolutely incredible and a dream of mine. But I think when a movie has a message and can move you, that's when I think it's super important, and I think that's super special.
Speaking from my own experience, movies have always been, I believe, a form of escapism. And I remember being younger and movies were something that I could turn on and learn from and be able to also just exit my own reality and be somewhere else and learn from that somewhere else. And that is what I think makes movies truly great, is that they can be so distant from your own reality, but they can still ring really true, and they can make a lasting impression in you. I think when it comes to the movie making process, I think what makes movies really great is collaboration, is putting together a team of talented people, caring people, and figuring out how to make something out of nothing, and making something as difficult in the moment as recreating a drive-in movie theater, and making it work and making it happen. And I think, the team that was on this movie is unbelievably talented, and getting to sit with people on set and in a room and writing and all this other stuff and bounce ideas off of each other and, work towards something, and getting to watch it together and look back on that, I think is really powerful, and I think it's immensely important.